HireMilitary Spouses Live with Matt Quick, Ramiro Martinez, Michaela Brown, and Rita Lung. So we're going to take a few minutes this evening to kind of walk you through their journey, and I'm going to turn it over to Mac to do some introductions.
Hey, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So last week we discussed, Mike and I were on LinkedIn Live discussing maybe doing this weekly. Well, here we are. So this is the first iteration. So you may see on your screen Ramiro, Rita, and Michaela, all military spouses, and all doing great things. But the one thing they may lack right now is some exposure to some hiring events. So tonight we're going to get with them and talk about their experiences, their challenges, how they overcome the challenges, and go from there. But before I start, I want to read a little bit about military spouses from the DOL, Department of Labor's Women's Bureau. It talks about military spouses come from a varying racial and ethnic background and bring diverse set of skills to the labor force. They also make many sacrifices to protect our country and ensure prosperity. 92% of military spouses are women. 53% of military spouses participated in the labor market, compared to 76% of the general population. 13% of military spouses are unemployed, 3 times the rate of men and women nationally. So this is why we do what we do, just to give notice, give some exposure to some military spouses. So we're going to kick it off right now with Ramiro. So Ramiro, tell us a little about your background, what it is, where you're at, and what do you want to do?
Okay. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, Matt, Michael, for having me. It's a pleasure. And my background is in IT, specializing in cybersecurity. After receiving my degree, I've had several roles as a system administrator and a cybersecurity analyst. But as my main role as being a spouse, which kind of shocks most people because every time they see me and my wife out in town, they assume I'm the active member and she's a spouse. And I got to tell them, like, no, we're progressive in this household and we're moving ahead. And she's active duty and I'm the spouse. So that's my main role. And recently we got transitioned out to 29 Palms, California. So as you mentioned, coming across programs and resources is kind of scarce, just for the simple fact that even though there's a base up the street, the nearest hiring event for spouses or for any type of veteran activity is 3 hours away. If there's no traffic, if I'm lucky.
So you're part of the 8%, Ramiro, and we appreciate that, you coming on here. So we're gonna skip around a little bit and talk to Rita real fast. Rita Lung, she's got some good background. She's actually before we get involved with Rita, she developed 12 days of something that she's going to tell us about later on. And she's very involved in LinkedIn and very out there. So Rita, tell us about your background and what it is you want to do.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. So I have been a social change catalyst for almost 10 years, and I have seen how it empowers people to change the world. So what that means is being a social change catalyst is I've worked through nonprofits primarily thus far to just empower people to do good things, make an impact, and make the world a better place. Right now, I've kind of shifted a little bit sideways into communications, but I'm definitely looking to get back into corporate social responsibility, social impact, and see how I can make an impact in the world.
I like that. So you're doing a lot. I saw a communication background, and you have a degree as well, right?
Yes. So I have actually a master's in education with a concentration in early childhood development and special education. Before coming to the DC area about a year and a half ago, we were in Pensacola, Florida, where I did a lot of work with the autism community. I was the program manager for family support for the Navy's Exceptional Family Member program. And I've also done work with the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, which is Florida's kind of state-run nonprofit for autism awareness and advocacy.
So Washington D.C.'s weather is a little different than Florida's, right?
Just a bit, just a bit.
Hey, thanks, Rita. Michaela, let's go to you now. Tell us a little about your background and what you're looking to do.
Sure. So I started off with a bachelor's in psychology because I like the people side of things. I find that fascinating, and I combined that with an MBA. For the last 10 years, I've been in varying roles. Typically, they involve training and development, instructional design, and a lot of project management, as well as public speaking. I've been involved in Toastmasters as a VP and president. So that's one of my big passions, is empowering people to be better public speakers, one of most people's greatest fears. So right now I am in more of a project management role. We did have to move about a year ago down to the Tidewater area from DC. And right now I'm looking to transition more into something that would be on the human capital side, particularly training and development and consulting.
Okay, so Toastmasters. So I'm going to hand this over to you now, Michaela. You take care of the rest of this. You can do the interviews, all right?
Okay, sounds good. Got it.
All right, I'll hand it tonight, but next time it's on you. So,
All right.
Michaela, we'll go back to you now. What employment challenges do you face as a military spouse?
Both personally and based on secondhand knowledge of friends, I have seen a lot of folks who have struggled to find opportunities to develop. I know I struggled with that myself, especially once it was discovered that I was a military spouse. The opportunities to develop started to dwindle down. And I also know that there are places out there where people are actually being let go because they have to move. And I did encounter that myself, where I had to move, and because of my husband's career, I was told that I needed to resign. So I'm not alone in that regard. Some roles just aren't very flexible when it comes to, if you need to move and relocate, they can't follow you. That's just the reality of it. So that's one reason why the next role that I'm targeting, I'm looking for it to either be remote or home-based with travel. I do have extensive experience with travel-based roles and home-based roles, so I'm perfectly comfortable. I know the pitfalls, and that would be what I would want to move into in the near future.
Well, that's sad to hear that they discriminate because of your constant moves. So, so you're looking for more of a consulting role, like a Deloitte, Accenture, or something like that?
Yeah, I would be open to companies like that, and I have applied to different companies like that. I've actually been in the throes of what I will call more of a marathon rather than a sprint type of job application process. And
Yeah.
by that, I mean that I've been very purposeful. I've been working with a mentor who is actually a former Coast Guard member. He's phenomenal. So what we did first was overhauled my resume. It wasn't doing what I needed it to do for me. Worked on my LinkedIn, developing that, building it out to highlight my strengths. And honestly, the biggest thing that helped me, and this would be something I would recommend to anybody, whether you're a spouse, a military member, or just a civilian, go over your entire history, because this was the best exercise for me, not just looking at what I have experience in that I've been paid for, but my volunteer opportunities like Toastmasters. I never was paid a dime, but I built a club from scratch with really nothing except for a couple other mentors on the side, and developed that out. So anything like that, if you can pull it into a resume, make a list of all the areas of things that you're good at, and it actually empowers you. We do live in a difficult environment, however we want to paint it, as sometimes people are discriminated against. Sometimes it's just simply a challenge because you're bopping around from one town to another. But just to know what you're good at is a phenomenal starting place. So that's been probably the most powerful tool for me in overcoming the challenges that I face as a spouse.
You make some good points there, Michaela, and mentorship is definitely a key to finding roles, finding opportunities. But volunteerism, even though it's not a paid role, if you're a full or part-time volunteer, that can go on your resume. Some of the barriers that people face or military spouses face is the interview bias. That comes from really, um, when interviews are asked, when will you move again? How often do you move? When are you going to move next? Those kind of things. It's kind of like an ageism or sexism for interviews. So that's one of the barriers. Another barrier you mentioned was the volunteerism, is the resume gaps. If you can add your volunteer time into the resume, that eliminates some of those gaps or reduces them. But good points. We appreciate that. Ramiro, you're
Sure.
kind of quiet over
Matt.
there tonight.
Matt, can I jump in for a minute?
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm here.
Of course.
Yeah. So as us guys in the mids figure out how to work this whole live stream system, I figured out how to do profiles. People may have seen that as we dialed in real quick. So I wanted to
All
take a
right,
second,
there's Michaela.
Michaela, to kind of look over your profile and kind of work through this with you. So when we talk about your background and we talk about applying for consulting industries, I guess here's my number one question. What would you consult on?
The human capital side of business. And quite frankly, I'm not pigeonholing myself in any particular industry. I've learned that my skill sets can apply in government, private industry, any kind of company, really. So that's why I've kept it a little more broad based, but I'm certainly open to any of your feedback on it.
So that would be the first part. I want to kind of get you away from saying the word pigeonhole. What it actually boils down to is making a
Okay.
decision. And so when we look to hire people, we're looking for people with specific skill sets that know what they want to do and bring experience to the table. And you have that for all of these things. But as we look at this, it kind of looks confusing. And so if you're going to say human capital, that's not specifically identifying an industry. It's speaking towards a skill set. And so I would like to see you actually lean forward, select what you want to do, stick with your first choice. And if you want to go into any kind of human capital consulting, or if you want to go into the HR arena, or if you want to go into training and development, I would speak more towards that. So instead of saying trainer, instructor, designer, or project manager and client relationship manager, which really is just a kind of a listing of the jobs you've held, I'd like to see you identify yourself as a professional in your chosen field. So I would look to you seeing something along as, you know, you could talk about human capital or human capital consulting, instructional design, training management, uh, and public speaking, or something along those lines, and start to talk about the things that companies will look to hire you to consult on. Does that make sense?
Okay. That makes sense.
And then as we go down and scroll through, I'd really love to see you speak more towards what those 10 years of accomplishments are. Let me get my glasses on here. So, if you're going to talk about training and project manager, but up here you talk about instructional design and everything else like that, I say instructional design goes way beyond just training. That's a very highly technical skill. So I would like to see more along the lines of you speaking to your specific HR, human capital, or instructional design experience, and kind of speak more towards the size of the projects that you've worked. A little more specificity in those first three lines. This is a little fluffy, and hearing you talk and bringing in that Toastmasters when it comes to facilitation, instructional design, and training would be fantastic.
Sure. Can you see what you can see if you click on see more there and
Yeah,
let me
but
know what you think about that?
I can, but I just want to let you know that if the
Okay.
first three lines don't make
I was
me
curious
want to
for your
click to
feedback.
see more, I'll do it.
Okay.
But see, I would have never clicked to see more.
Okay.
So this is
That's good feedback.
fantastic, right? This should be like the top three lines should scream that out loud. You got to make us want to look at it. And the same thing. So now as we look down at this, these are all great, but when you talk about project management, what kind of projects were they?
Okay. Is that an actual question, or you want me to
Yeah.
just make sure I put that in there?
Well, I'd love to know,
Okay.
are they human capital projects?
Awards and promotions projects, building out training programs where they had never previously existed,
So yes.
building out training for train the trainer programs,
Absolutely.
you name
So
it.
even
Those are just a few examples.
in the consulting arena, I do human capital. Our managers are project managers, and they're working in different. I have a comms project manager. I have a training manager that works for me right now. So you need to kind of tie all that together into one nice package.
Okay.
And I think then that'll tie all the rest of this together. And then what I would say is you really need to focus on adding connections. Do you know how to do advanced searches?
Yes. I've always
Okay.
been slightly bashful about adding connections, especially where I really don't know the person, but I have recently been branching out in that regard more than I'm typically comfortable with.
Yep. So I would actually recommend you can search for people at the large consulting firms that have similar backgrounds. You can even look for people that worked at Fiserv or Allstate or are uh, veterans from the branch of service your spouse works, is in or anything like that. Just find somebody with something in common. Even if you go down to your education. So you could find people in the consulting arena that went to the University of Tennessee or the University of Dayton, and it's somebody that you have something in common with that you can reach out to and just ask for a short phone call. That's it. You can take it from there.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect. Now, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, but if we have any questions for Michaela, people can type them in and I'll ask her.
Thanks, Mike. That was good stuff, Michaela. So there's no charge tonight at all. It's all free information. Hey, Ramiro. So what are the? Go ahead. Ramiro, what are the challenges that you face or have you seen faced from a both a military spouse and a veteran, and on your standpoint?
All right, so I'm kind of in a weird little situation myself with being a spouse. Typically, when I apply to these big companies that I know are within the 2 hours as a cybersecurity professional, or say I just joined their talent pool, right, as a spouse, because a lot of them have, they advertise that they want to hire spouses that are within the area. But the number one question I get is, awesome, you're a spouse, this position right here for cybersecurity or any IT position, they'll ask for a clearance. If I have any, or and in my mind, I've never met a spouse when I was active duty that came in as a spouse with a clearance. So that's the one issue that I see, and because I don't know if you're experienced, Michaela or Rita, or even yourself, Matt or Michael, it seems kind of I don't know the proper word to describe it, but it doesn't make any sense for me to get contacted for a spouse role that they have, and I get asked for a clearance. That's something I can't find.
Well, now,
Mhm.
yeah, Mike actually with EY hires a bunch of spouses. Mike, want to talk about clearances?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just hired over, I think, 115. We had another probably 50 to 80 coming in. All over the country, we're hiring military spouses, veterans, and you just have to be eligible for a clearance, and then we're actually submitting people for clearances. So we're getting secret clearances for the military spouses. So you just got to be careful. I mean, if the job requires a clearance and it's not a government job, then it's going to require clearance because otherwise the contractor has to
Yeah.
hire you, keep you on the books, and then put you in for the clearance and wait.
Good point.
Right, and that's one thing that I've been told, because typically if you get hired on without the clearance, you have to wait until the clearance paperwork goes through. And from my knowledge, from what I've been told, it could take up to a year to 2 years, just because contractors aren't high priority at the point. It's military officials.
Depends on the clearance. So TS can take 2 years, but a secret clearance, you can really get. I think we're getting interim clearances for people that have the right background in 30 to 45 days.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
That's good news, Ramiro.
that is.
All right, good. Hey, Rita, on to you now. Or do you want to do his profile, Mike?
Yeah. Okay, let me get this
Oh
up.
yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Hold on.
I feel like the wealth
I got
needs
my
to be
notes.
shared now.
Of course, we don't single you out, Michaela.
So
get ready, Ramiro. Get ready.
all right, so
Stay
I
ready.
will tell you there's
Got my
like
notes ready.
300,000 cybersecurity jobs around the country. So the fact that you're having trouble finding a job is a little alarming. Yeah, I think you have to, the challenge is that you have to stick away from and not focus on the government industry. A lot of the government jobs are going to require clearances because of contractual requirements to operate on the network, right?
Right.
And so, you got to open up to other industries. So as I look at this, I mean, first of all, you look like a Marine. Uh, we need to get a
Semper
smile in
Fi.
there. So, I
Right.
mean, you smile now. So let's get some smiles on there. Maybe a different kind of clothing. You look a little scary. And then I would, really do something about this background image, the blue screen with the connected white dots. And you can look at my LinkedIn cheat sheet; it'll walk you through that. I mean, it's not a mandatory, but it makes a huge difference. And then let's
Mhm.
talk about cybersecurity. So let me check something real quick. So do you have your degree yet?
Yes.
Perfect. So when we talk about cybersecurity analyst, do you have any certifications?
Yes. Security Plus, CCNA, 40net level 1, 2, and soon to be 4, and Splunk certificates as well, fundamentals 1 and 2,
So the big ones
and
there are going to be the Sec Plus and the Security Plus and the CCNA, right?
mhm.
They're the biggest ones. So you should add those in your headline.
Oh, okay.
So like, yeah, absolutely. So cybersecurity analyst, Security Plus, CCNA, and if you want to add one or two more that are something that are desired by those in the cybersecurity industry, that'll work. It'll help a lot. And then we'll go
Okay.
down here. Oof, Michaela, you're good. We don't. This one's all like you're in cybersecurity, highly motivated, recent college graduate and Marine Corps veteran, seeking a challenging opportunity to apply my formal education. And like, let me look down at your experience here.
Mike, to be
So,
fair, Michaela's was on the full
Yeah,
screen, and Ramiro isn't.
yeah. You're
oh,
not
it's not
sharing the
on.
screen.
Yeah, I can't. We're not
Yeah.
sharing.
Why did you guys let me
There you
talk
Give
Yeah,
us
go.
there
the
you go.
experience.
You got to
Ooh, rah,
remind me.
Ramiro.
Yeah. Okay. So let me start over. Okay. So we've got this scary looking Marine, like super serious, right? We've got the blue screen with the connected white dots, and we've got cybersecurity analyst and Marine Corps veteran, right? So in the headline, I would add the Security Plus, CCNA, any other certifications, right? And then as I roll down here, you can see the about. I mean, I feel like I'm looking at highly motivated with a demonstrated history of whatever. I would really love to see um, something along this that says, cybersecurity analyst with, 1 year of experience managing PC and network administration, cybersecurity, and whatever else. Talk about that background of what you've been doing for the last year. And then say career supported by Security Plus, CCNA, all the different certifications, and with something along the lines of the values that come with being a Marine Corps veteran.
Okay.
But
Because
same thing. Those
correct
first
me if
three
I'm
lines.
wrong.
Sorry,
From what I understood, huh?
Yep. Go ahead.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understood, I'm going over this and Michaela's. We basically want to get the attention of whoever's reading our profile within our headline and within the first 3-4 lines of our statement paragraph.
Absolutely. So the first 3 lines of your summary or about me should really include numbers, specific skills, specific experience that speaks to you as a cybersecurity analyst.
Okay.
And then let's see down here in the experience. So I would actually, do you do anything cybersecurity related for your current job?
Yes, I do. I haven't updated my experience part on this, which
Yeah, so
I will do after tonight.
let's make that first one. You're something about cybersecurity. It speaks to those skills. And then as we go
Okay.
down to your degree, I would remove the years. Like you don't need to tell anybody that you're a recent college graduate because people make assumptions based on that. I would just
Right.
say you're a college. You just leave it there. They know you have a degree. Or you don't have a degree. And then I would add
Okay.
the CCNA and the other certs down here.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Very helpful.
Back over to you, Matt.
Hey, great feedback, Mike. That's good stuff. So, for our listeners or watchers out there, this is good feedback. So, if you want to come on here and get your LinkedIn profile picked apart, it's professional. It's don't be scared. This is good feedback, and I'll work with Michaela, Rita, and Ramiro as we go forward. Work on the profile. So, don't be scared. So Rita, let's speak about your challenge that you may have faced or heard of through military spouses.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So you guys have already kind of touched upon it. And part of it is those gaps in the resume, or what I affectionately call a patchwork resume.
I think we lost Rita.
I heard
That's fine. She'll get back on soon. So going on, Ramiro and Michaela, what are the biggest accomplishments that you've had so far in your careers that you want to carry forward to the next job or professional career?
You want to go first, Michaela?
Ramiro, you want to go first?
Michaela first.
Okay, I'll take it. Oh, Michaela first? Okay.
So some of my biggest accomplishments, I would say one of the more recent ones was starting that Toastmasters chapter. I started an evolution when I was 15 years old I knew whatever job I wanted involved public speaking, and I was absolutely petrified, like most people are, to get in front of a group. So to go from that to ending up as the president of a Toastmasters chapter, a brand new one, was one of my best accomplishments. That, and I would say one of the last positions I held as a corporate trainer, I ended up training well over 1,500 different sales professionals and agency owners. And that involved a lot of one-on-one consulting, as well as training big group auditoriums of people and every size of audience in between. So a lot of behavioral flexibility, a lot of discovering what the needs are and customizing or building training to meet that need. A lot of that is what I want to build into my future career path as I move forward.
That sounds good, Michaela. Hey, Ramiro, we're going to hold off on you. Rita's back now, so go ahead, Rita.
Hey, sorry, I don't know what happened. Technical difficulties. But to answer your question about challenges that I've experienced or I've heard about, you guys kind of already touched a little bit upon it, but there's what I affectionately call the patchwork quilt of a resume, in that either we have a small gap, or maybe sometimes not so small of a gap on the resume, or maybe the jobs that we have been able to get may not look like they align to a career plan or a career field. It's easy to pick up a resume and go, well, you've done this, and that. I mean, do you really know what you want to do? How come you have these jobs all over the place? Because sometimes there's we want to be, we all have that dream job out there that we want, and we want to work in our career fields, but sometimes as military spouses, we don't have control over where we're going. And sometimes it comes down to a matter of we need to work to keep the lights on, pay the bills, that kind of thing. And the job that we're fortunate enough to find may not be something that's in our career field. And that's great, because that's employment. We're not we're not the unemployed adding to the unemployed statistic, but the long-term repercussion of that is, you can end up with somewhat of a patchwork resume that, when you present to people, folks are like, are you trying to switch industries again? Or are you trying to switch fields again? So that definitely, on top of the challenges that have already been mentioned with the employment gaps, having that patchwork resume, it has also been a challenge.
That's great feedback, Rita. Mike, do you want to go over her LinkedIn profile?
I would love to. So Rita's been to a couple of my workshops, right? And so I want to start off for a second and talk about this, because we talk about this patchwork career. We talk about the challenges of different jobs and having to do what we have to do. And I get it. You just described a service member. The same thing we go through. We go from job to job to job. So I will tell you the same thing relates to you. You decide your story. And it's up to you to pull the thread of all the things you've done in those jobs to paint a picture and tell a story about what would make you a social impact catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Definitely.
as we look at your profile here, what do you want to do? I know we had this conversation before. Dream job.
I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact.
So we're going back to the same thing. Not pigeonholing yourself, or not making a decision as to what you want to do ideally for your dream job or your dream career. So I understand you want to make a difference. Does that mean you want to work at a nonprofit?
I'm not completely counting that out, but I am focused on corporate social responsibility and corporate citizenship, so I can help corporations make a big difference in the world.
Okay, so corporate social responsibility. Do they have that a lot at some of these big firms? How many positions do you think there are that do that?
Not as many as there are for more common things like HR or communications or cybersecurity.
You see where I'm going with this, right?
Right.
So, we have to brand ourselves not only for the career we want, but for where we can get to now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what is your path to being one of those social or corporate responsibility roles in a large corporation? Have you talked to any people that do that?
Yes. So I've actually been super fortunate with connecting to some great folks on LinkedIn
Hmm.
that have gifted me with their time and mentorship. So I've attempted to apply to a couple of positions actually in corporate social responsibility, utilizing the strength of my network. And I am definitely also open to working as in a different role, in a different capacity for a company that has a corporate social responsibility department or function, and working my way on over.
So what would that role be?
Well, because currently I am in communications, I'm thinking that the most the best way for me might be another communications role. I'm definitely cognizant of the fact that it might be hard to get directly into corporate social responsibility. I would love for it to happen, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. But with my current role, corporate communications, maybe I can hop into communications and then from there hop into corporate social responsibility.
I I think that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's very realistic. I think that there is a bridge from internal communications to corporate responsibility. Uh, I, I just don't see it on your profile.
Okay.
And I think that's the challenge. So when I see social impact catalyst, and it's just my perspective, and obviously you do communication, so you're totally fine on this. But that's to me like recruiting ninja. Like that's for the people that are already doing that.
hmm
And so, instead of focusing on the fantastic things you're doing for communications and then tying that together with the things you're doing in the community, your social work and all the other things so that you can show you bring both things to the table. Does
Yeah.
that kind of
So maybe
make
move up
sense?
the. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I think for a long, long time, I was kind of going for the dream job, going for the unicorn, right?
Hmm.
I was extremely picky in my search because my thing was, well, I'm gainfully employed, I've got a job, I can afford to be a little bit picky. And unfortunately, right before Thanksgiving, I was kind of notified that my role will be going away because of restructuring. So I think this is definitely the time that I can no longer be picky. And I think my LinkedIn profile has to reflect that broadened approach that I am now taking.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you've got to tie together who you are
hmm
now and who you want to be. And you've got to tell that story in that headline.
Yeah.
And I really
Yeah.
think you can get there with all the extra things you do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll lose the social impact catalyst, maybe move up corporate social responsibility and something in there about communications. I'll have to get back to you
Yeah.
on that. Stay tuned.
I mean, I would actually like a big part of social responsibility is communications, right?
Right, right.
So you can tie that
Storytelling.
together. Yeah. So like you could talk about, corporate communications, social responsibility, military family and disability programs. You can start to
hmm
tie all that together into something that makes sense. Not that this
right,
doesn't.
right. Well, I will bring back the social impact catalyst along with the ninja headline when I get that job. That's a promise.
And can I tell you, I have no doubt that you'll get there.
Thank
So,
you.
so we're going to scroll down a little bit. So now we go back to those first three lines again,
hmm
and all I hear the social service, but I don't see anything that really tells me about your communications and the things you've done. It,
Right.
it's very fluffy, and so I'd
hmm
love to see those three lines where you kind of give us more detail on what you put into your headline.
Right, right. Yeah. I think the step my entire profile definitely needs to have more of that broadened
Mhm.
view.
Yep.
Given that I'm no longer I can no longer afford to be picky and only look for corporate social responsibility positions, and I am broadening my search. So definitely.
So I would say you can always afford to be picky, but you also have to be realistic. So don't undersell yourself. So like
Hmm.
make
Hmm.
sure that you know that you can wait to find the right role, and that I'm hopeful that the right role is in Lockheed Martin, and that you can get there by growing within that company. But you can brand yourself as a professional in what you're doing now, and start to find ways to have impact in those fields. And I think a lot of that's also going to come through your volunteer work.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Definitely.
okay. Do you do anything with corporate responsibility or any kind of social responsibility or groups at Lockheed Martin?
Yes, so that's actually how I joined Lockheed Martin. I went through the Hiring Our Heroes corporate
Hmm.
fellowship program for military spouses directly into community relations. So the plan was to finish my fellowship and have a position following the fellowship. Um, I was, it was full transparency going in. The team was extremely, clear with me that that was a billet that they had lost, but
Hmm.
they were in the process of trying to get back. Unfortunately, that didn't quite materialize. So I shifted to a neighboring team in communications,
Hmm.
corporate social responsibility sits within communications at Lockheed Martin. So I was fortunate enough that when that billet didn't, they weren't when the team wasn't successful in getting that billet back, I was able to shift into employee communications at Lockheed.
So, what I read here is what your job is,
Hmm.
not what you've done.
Okay.
And then, are you involved with any other like employee resource groups or um, any of
Uh,
their community programs, or will you be
I
doing that very soon?
I will be doing that very soon, more of it. So I've done some, not enough that I think
Yeah,
meets the mark to go on a LinkedIn profile. So I definitely will be
yeah.
upping that a bit.
I think that as you took a look at these large companies, it's a fantastic way to not only have that social impact for the company, and then as you're participating with your active LinkedIn presence and sharing,
Mhm.
posts about what you're doing, you can kind of build your reputation within Lockheed Martin, and hopefully that'll create some additional opportunities for you. Uh, and,
Yeah,
and, and,
definitely.
and I'm sure they're doing a lot in the community.
Yeah. Well, thank yous for
Mhm.
heads up
Yep.
that my LinkedIn profile needs to reflect my broadened search
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good feedback.
All right. So let me go back over here, Matt. I'm sorry. I got into LinkedIn profiles and I dominated the conversation. For everybody out there, they were not ready for me to tear up their profiles, so I apologize.
Hey, that's good though. It's good information, and I see them all taking notes, which is good. Hey, so I have one final question for you, Ramiro, Michaela, and Rita. If you could speak to a hiring manager or employer, what would you tell them? Why should they hire you right now? Ramiro, go
You
first.
want to call out who goes first? All right, let me go first. Okay. I would say is that have a strong quality of passion for cybersecurity. I know it's something you can't teach, and it's not something I see in a lot of people. I see a lot of people burn out with this role, and to me, I wake up hungry for it every day.
That's good stuff. Michaela?
So if I was speaking to a hiring manager, first I would treat it as a two-way street to make sure that the role was something that would be a good fit for me. Beyond that, I would say to express who I am, I have a real passion for the human side of business. What makes people tick? How can I help them to create an optimal outcome? So I would want to approach a role from the standpoint of first understand the culture, understand the people. What is the either the challenge that we need to rise above or the goal that we need to meet? And I can go in and roll my sleeves up and from the ground up, whether you need a training program built, you have projects that need managed, a team of people that need to be led or that want a new leader with my skill sets, then I'm in for the challenge. I've never been one to shrink from any challenge that was placed in front of me.
Very well stated, Michaela. I appreciate that. Rita, what would you say?
So the first thing I would say to a hiring manager is, what can I do for you? What are the challenges that I can help you with? What are your priorities? What's your vision for the role? Let me know how I can help. I want to know what your 30, 60, 90-day plan is. I would, once I have that, I'd go on to highlight not just my personal experience and what I can do, my broad range of experience building relationships, creating change, but I'd also want to highlight the qualities that military spouses have. As you mentioned a little bit in the beginning, I have that campaign that I'm currently doing, the 12 Days of Christmas, to share 12 qualities that make military spouses great hires. And we're on day 10. And these are all qualities that, it's not there to explain away the gaps. It's not there to say, hire me just because I'm a military spouse, but it's the glue that holds that brings all varied experiences together. That being a military spouse is not just a stamp. Here you go. Here's your token. You're now a military spouse. Congratulations. It means something more. And furthermore, it means something for an employer. When you're hiring a military spouse, you get somebody who's great at networking. I mean, what do we do every 3 to 4 years? We completely rebuild our networks from the ground up. You get somebody who's flexible, who's innovative, who's versatile, and who's resilient. And those are all things that or qualities that, yes, we have as just military spouses, but those are also qualities that can be a great benefit for employers. So I would just maybe call upon that and try to see if we can change some mindsets there.
I like that, Rita. And for anyone who wants to read Rita's 12 Days of Giving, go ahead on her profile and read that. It talks about resilience, versatile, flexible, innovative, all kinds of things. So before we drop off the line, Mike, do you want to read a couple questions at all?
Yeah, I was looking through.
If they came across.
Yeah, I didn't get too many questions right now. I actually have a question. Have any of you considered federal jobs?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Have you
I
actually
believe
applied?
that is it the DoD that has that program for spouses or the preference.
Oh,
So yes, I have looked at that. Kind of similar to Ramiro, I don't yet have a clearance. I know I did in the past when I was interning with the Department of Energy, but that was about 10 or 11 years ago. So I'm sure that's been phased out a long time ago. But yes, I've absolutely looked at federal jobs. If I did go that route, I just want to make sure there was some flexibility or some accommodation made if I needed to, again, PCS with my husband in a couple of years, so that I'm not back to square one with looking for a different job.
and so what I would say, Michaela, is, and for all of you, is to understand that just about every federal agency has direct non-competitive hire authority for military spouses. I know that the VA is specifically the VBA and a lot of other agencies are hiring military spouses. And if you make the right connection with a hiring manager, they can make a decision to hire you on the spot. And
Wow.
federal agencies, if you do your paperwork right, will enable you to do priority placement across the country, or even overseas if the opportunity presents itself. It's not a guarantee, but it's something to consider.
Great.
Good feedback.
Yep.
So before we end this, I want all the listeners and watchers, please connect with Ramiro, Michaela, and Rita. Go ahead and blow up their timelines. Send all these connection requests, send a message to them. Make them famous. They're doing great things out here. Thanks to Mike Quinn for supporting this important cause as a tech lead here today, and the HireMilitary team for supporting us as we go forward. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being patient with me as I blunder my way through this system. I should have done a better job of fading you guys in and out and learning how to do this in a way that highlights you much better. I promise I will work to get better at it. But if you guys want to reach back out to me, Ramiro, Michaela, Rita, and make some changes to your profile, and I'll take back a look. Let me know, and let's work to highlight the amazing things you would bring to any company.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everybody, and have a great night.